BJ Mafia, what's poppin'? Jaguar fans, we are about 1 month away from the 2023 NFL Draft. Y'all, I've been holding out for the last month, doing a lot of studying, doing a lot of research, and doing my due diligence when it comes to these draft prospects, and I am excited to now be finally talking some NFL draft with y'all. And I'm also excited for the fact is that the Jaguars don't have the #1 overall pick like we had the last 2 seasons back-to-back, where we took our quarterback of the future franchise quarterback, future All-Pro Super Bowl champion, William Trevor Lawrence, back in 2021 with the #1 overall pick. And then last year we took Trayvon Walker with the #1 pick out of the University of Georgia. But what I'm gonna do in today's video is I'm gonna talk about 5 draft prospects for the Jaguars to potentially take at pick number 24. And I don't know exactly where these guys are gonna fall in the draft. I'm obviously going off some base projections, but also I'm going off of the fact is, where do I value these guys? Where do I value what the Jaguars need? And also, how do I actually rank these prospects in terms of value, need, and how they would probably fit with the Jaguars? We'll do a little bit of film study with them as well too, some things that I like on tape, some things that I don't like on tape with all of these guys. And I'll go from 5 to 1, 5 being the guy that I'm not as high on, 1 being the guy that if he's there at 24, I want the Jaguars to go ahead and take him. Let's stop talking, let's actually get into my number 5 prospect, y'all. So the Jaguars are on the clock at pick number 24, and my 5th prospect is going to be cornerback from the University of South Carolina, Cam Smith. Now, Cam Smith comes in at 6'1", 180 pounds. He ran a 4.43 at the combine, a 38-inch vertical, and his combine score compared to all cornerbacks ranked 6th with a total production score of 85. In 11 games in 2022 at the University of South Carolina, Cam Smith logged 20 tackles, had 6 pass breakups, 1 interception, and allowed a quarterback rating of a 71.3. Not terrific, but not that bad either. It could definitely be a little bit better. But in 2021, Cam Smith had a phenomenal campaign, only allowed a 36.5 quarterback rating when targeted, which was the best in the SEC that season. Now getting a little bit into the film, let's go over a little bit of the bad and then we'll kind of get into the good with Cam Smith. And I'm not going to go too deep into film because there's a lot of studying that went into this, so I'm only going to give you guys little bits and glimpses of what I actually took apart. But getting into the film with Cam Smith, let's actually go into this game versus Kentucky. This play I did not like by him. Now he's about 10 yards off the line of scrimmage. He's at the bottom of the screen, as you can see here. Does not do a good job staying poised. He gets absolutely burnt on that double move. I'm not sure if Cam Smith thought that he had help on the backside with the safety over the top, but just not a great job by him on that play. And then same thing, a little bit later on in this game, he gets absolutely cooked on this double move, and any good NFL quarterback or any quarterback who had any time to make this throw is making this throw, and Cam Smith right here at the bottom of the screen gets absolutely burnt on a double move. I'm not sure if he had a miscommunication with the safety because the safety dropped down into the middle of the field. I'm not sure if he thought that the safety was going to play too deep and he was going to have that help backside, but otherwise, very lackadaisical, very lackluster, not a great job by him. He got absolutely burnt on those 2 plays. But getting into the good with Cam Smith, what you do like is this play right here at the bottom of the screen. He's lined up and he goes step for step with the wide receiver the entire time, very poised, extremely fast, extremely athletic. This is something that I've seen more often than not from him on tape. He's got the athletic ability to succeed. Not sure how he's going to play, especially in the nickel. A lot of things would have to schematically fit for the Jaguars to have him there as well too, because he does do a pretty good job on the outside, but I like him a lot better in press man-to-man coverage from the tape that I've watched of him. Don't really like him playing off the receiver, playing about 10, 15 yards off. I don't really like that. He's not very poised and not very sound when it comes to his technique there. Takes a lot of gambles, but he does do a great job in press man-to-man coverage. He's got the athletic ability. That's why I've got Cam Smith at number 5. Let's go into my number 4 prospect. Now getting into my number 4 prospect for the Jaguars, give me safety out of the University of Alabama, Brian Branch. Now, Brian Branch would be a little bit higher up on my list if I did not fear the fact is that Brian Branch is probably going to be taken somewhere in the top 15 to 20 range, unless the Jaguars decide to trade up, which I'm not doing any trades in this draft. I don't think Brian Branch is going to be there at 24, but you never know. He could possibly slip because he is the best safety in this draft. He's projected to be. The athletic talent and the tape speaks for itself. Brian Branch is going to be a phenomenal day 1 starter in the NFL. Of course, it's going to take some rookies some time to get adjusted to the NFL game, to the NFL speed, but Brian Branch is a phenomenal prospect. Now, Brian Branch listed at 6 feet tall, 190 pounds. He ran a 4.58 40, so not that fast, but the game speed speaks a lot for itself because on tape, and when you watch the University of Alabama, I've watched obviously a couple of Alabama games this past season, Brian Branch flashes out onto the tape. He flashes on the TV. He's explosive. He had a 34.5-inch vertical, and he had a combine score of an 87. Like I said, he tested as the best safety at the combine, and he's clearly the best safety in this draft. Now, talking about his 2022 campaign, Brian Branch in 12 games, 63 tackles, 14 assists, 6 pass breakups, 1 interception, and had a quarterback rating of a 75.5 this past season, which is a huge leap and a huge increase from his lackluster QBR when targeted in 2021 of 110.9. Great improvement by him there. He also had 6 pressures and 2 sacks on the season. Now, getting a little bit into the film, I saw a lot of positives that I took away from Brian Branch, but we're going to talk specifically about this game versus LSU. Now, getting into this first play versus LSU, Brian Branch, you can see here, is lined up, reading the eyes of the quarterback, and he's extremely explosive, very twitchy, reads the eyes of the quarterback, breaks on the ball, and makes a great play, a great open field tackle, something that you love to see, because I don't really view him as a ball hawk safety versus a guy like Andre Cisco, who the Jaguars have, but having the ability to make an instinctive play like that, especially if he's going to be lined up in the nickel, a guy who's going to make a lot of open field tackles, and you see the clear game speed from him on a play like this is exactly what you want to see. Now, getting into this next play versus LSU, I love this play because you see Brian Branch disrupting the quarterback, but he bulldozes over the running back. You see him coming over in this blitz package, makes a huge hit on the running back, disrupts the quarterback, jumps up in the air. You see the instinctiveness of him to not only time the snap, but to run over the running back, disrupt the pass, and still make a play. What a hell of a play by him. You see the physicality that he possesses, and that reminds me a lot of former safeties, guys like Ed Reed, Cam Chancellor, Bob Sanders, the list goes on, a lot of hard-hitting safeties. He's got that kind of physicality. Is he on that level? Of course not. I'm not gonna go quite there yet. But that's a play, and a huge play, that I love to see from him on tape. Like I said with Brian Branch, I would ideally love to take him if he was there at 24. I just do not think that he is going to land there at 24. That's the only reason why I've got him ranked at number 4. But let's get into the number 3 prospect. Now, getting into my number 3 prospect for the Jaguars to take at number 24. This one might be a little bit more controversial, but I'm still going to voice my opinion. Give me edge rusher out of the University of Georgia, Nolan Smith. Now, I would like to preface my comments by saying that I'm sure Trayvon Walker and Tyson Campbell would absolutely love for the Jaguars to take another Georgia Bulldog, Nolan Smith, with the 24th overall pick. We saw Nolan Smith had a phenomenal 2021 campaign when they won the national championship alongside Trayvon Walker, and then he did have a season-ending pectoral torn muscle this past season when he appeared in 8 games, so he didn't get to play towards the end of the season. But what an absolute combine freak Nolan Smith was. We'll get into that in a second. But Nolan Smith comes in at 6'2", 238 pounds. He ran a 4.39 at the 40, just an absolute freak. I have no idea what the hell these guys in the athletic department at the University of Georgia are feeding to their guys. A 41.5-inch vertical, and he had a 78 combine score, which was 5th among edge rushers. Now, going to his 2022 campaign, he only appeared in 8 games. Like I said, he had a torn pectoral muscle, which caused him to miss the rest of the season. But in those 8 games, Nolan Smith had 18 tackles, 7 tackles for a loss, and 3 sacks. But if you go back to 2021, when he broke out onto the scene on one of the best college defenses that we've ever seen, alongside Trayvon Walker and Nakobe Dean, and that stacked Georgia defense, this is where Nolan Smith broke out in 2021. In 14 games, he had 56 tackles, 9 tackles for a loss, 3.5 sacks, 1 interception, 3 forced fumbles, 19 QB pressures, 12 quarterback hurries, and 5 QB hits that season. Now, before we kind of get into the tape with Nolan Smith, let me say that this is not a surefire slam dunk pick. I think that he's still a raw prospect, but I do see the potential and I do see the ceiling with him. But now getting into the film, Nolan Smith, go back to the 2021 SEC championship game versus Evan Neal, who was a top 10 overall pick. He went number 7 overall to the New York Giants, the best tackle in last year's class as projected to be. And Nolan Smith absolutely struggled in this game. We're going to talk a little bit about the bad with him because Evan Neal had his way with him all game. Now, getting into this first play, Nolan Smith, you see him lined up, not handing to the dirt, just takes a really bad and poor angle. Evan Neal does a great job being flexible, being agile, making sure that Nolan Smith does not take a good angle, and he does not use his hands very well here. Bryce Young's able to get the ball out extremely quick. And then getting into this next play for Nolan Smith, he just looks extremely lost here on this play, running a stint route, and Bryce Young has all day to throw the ball in the pocket. And you can credit a lot of this to the Alabama offensive line for having 2 guards, communicating extremely well. But even then, I don't see the explosiveness right here from him. I see him kind of lackluster, a little bit lackadaisical, not really knowing exactly where to go. I'd like to see some improvement there from him. And yes, I'm being picky because I am critiquing these guys. But getting into a good play when it came to Nolan Smith was this game versus Clemson, where you see him in the exact same stance, not in the three-point stance, but he's standing up off the edge and he's sitting right here. Does a great job getting off the line of scrimmage extremely quickly, keeps using his hand movement, never stops fighting, and gets into the quarterback and finally takes him down and gets that sack. Great job by Nolan Smith. Like I said, this is exactly where you see the potential out of him. You see the athletic ability, you see the speed that he plays with, and then you also see the handwork that he possesses. When he continues to fight, he continues to use his motor to his advantage. He is a very good player, and he does have an extremely high ceiling. I do think that he does have a very low floor. I want to make that very clear. But there is a lot to like with him, especially after an impressive combine. You really cannot overlook that, especially with the way that the Jaguars drafted Trayvon Walker last year. And the last thing I'll kind of say with Nolan Smith is the fact is I don't think that he does do a great job when it comes to taking the right angles, and I don't think that he does a great job in the run game. I do think that if you run the ball at him and you get a bigger lineman going after him, or even a tight end sometimes getting him to chip, I do think that Nolan Smith can be a little bit susceptible, but I will say his bend and his explosiveness is extremely impressive off the line of scrimmage. He does do a great job there, and it's always going to take some time schematically for guys to get used to the NFL game, especially if they're in their rookie season. Now getting into my number 2 prospect for the Jaguars to select at number 24, give me cornerback out of Maryland, Deonte Banks. Now I will say I am extremely high on Deonte Banks being there at number 24. I do think that he's gonna slip a little bit in this draft, but I do think that the Jaguars absolutely need to plunge on Deonte Banks if he's there at 24, and my number 1 guy is not gonna be there on the board, which we'll get to in a second. But Deonte Banks comes in at 6 feet tall, 197 pounds. He ran a 4.35 at the 40, a 42-inch vertical, and had an 87 combine score, which ranked 4th among all cornerbacks at the combine. In 2022, Deonte Banks broke out onto the scene in 12 games this past season at Maryland. He had 8 pass breakups, 38 tackles, 1 interception, and had a 71.4 quarterback rating when targeted. Now, those stats might not seem like they jump out onto the screen to you, but I'm telling you, the tape and also the athletic ability, it screams at you when you go and watch Deonte Banks. Now, the first great thing I want to say about Deonte Banks is he's a great press cover corner. I think he's going to do a great job in succeeding in the NFL, especially if he's in the nickel when it comes to the press corner. He does do a great job high pointing the ball, and he's extremely athletic, uses his feet very well, very sound with his technique, and he's also extremely patient, does not get out of his lanes very much. The only times I really saw Deonte Banks kind of struggle this season was in zone coverage when he's trying to read the eyes of a quarterback and he's trying to make a play or a break on the ball. Sometimes taking a gamble too often, which will not work to your benefit all the time in the NFL, especially if you get a quarterback who's extremely smart, but more often than not, Deonte Banks was doing all the right things. But overall, Deonte Banks is a phenomenal prospect. I'm extremely high on this guy, extremely impressed with the tape and what I saw from him. Let's kind of get into a little bit of the film. Now, getting into this first play versus the University of Michigan, I love this play from Deonte Banks. You see him lined up at the top of the screen, and he's extremely poised. He sees the receiver running that in route. He cuts back. And as the receiver is improvising, Deonte Banks does a great job keeping his head up, not holding on to the receiver and still making a play on the ball, putting his head backwards and not throwing a flag. Great job by him being extremely poised when it comes to the improv with the receiver, the quarterback, and also, like I said, doing a great job not actually holding a receiver, causing a penalty. Now, this next play for Deonte Banks is a great play. You see him lined at the top of the screen. Extremely great in press man coverage, like I said, follows the receiver step for step. And even though the quarterback is not going his way and he's scrambling around before eventually getting out and evading pressure, he does a great job still staying with the receiver the entire time during improv, and that's something that you definitely want to see. The way quarterbacks can maneuver and scramble out of the pocket in today's modern NFL, and the way that these guys can improv, and Patrick Mahomes is the perfect example of that. You want a corner who's going to stay poised, is going to stay in his lane, and also has the athletic ability and the explosiveness to keep up with these receivers. Does a great job not being penalized in those kind of situations. Love what I see from Deonte Banks. I'm extremely high on this guy. Now, getting into my number 1 prospect for the Jaguars to take, if he's there at number 24, give me guard from the University of Florida, O'Cyrus Torrence. Now, I know the whole narrative with Jaguars always have the worst luck drafting Florida Gators, and I understand that narrative, but hopefully Jawan Taylor, now with the Kansas City Chiefs, really broke that curse. And O'Cyrus Torrence, to me, is the best interior offensive line in this year's draft, and I think he is a plug-in, day 1 starter in the NFL. He's not a perfect prospect. None of these prospects are at the end of the day. And I love what I saw from O'Cyrus Torrence this year, especially versus a guy in Jalen Carter, who's going to be a top 10 pick in this year's draft. despite all the headlines that's been going on recently and all the controversy. Now, O'Cyrus Torrence comes in at 6'5", 330 pounds. He ran a 5'3", 140, and he had 23 reps on the bench press. Now, O'Cyrus Torrence in 12 games this season, 807 snaps this year, only allowed 4 quarterback hurries, 1 QB hit, and had no sacks this season. Also had 0 penalties per PFF. Now, the biggest thing that jumped out on the tape to me, especially when I deep dived into that Georgia game, the Florida-Georgia game, when he went up against Jalen Carter, the best interior defensive lineman in this year's draft class and a physical specimen, he held his own. Was he perfect against Jalen Carter? Absolutely not. But he definitely held his own. And the thing that I don't like about O'Cyrus Torrence, or I think that is gonna need some work at the NFL game, is the fact is if he does get a quick interior pass rusher, a guy who's very capable with his hands and quick off the line of scrimmage, he's gonna need a guy to help him chip. He's not perfect. He's not the strongest when it comes to that, but you do see the physical capabilities that he does have. And I do think that with time and with the right scheme around him, he's gonna flourish, especially if he's gonna be next to Luke Fortner. Oh my goodness. I can just see him being an absolute dominant force at the left guard position for the Jaguars. Also, one other great thing I love about O'Cyrus Torrence is the fact that we don't really care about 40 times when it comes to offensive linemen, but I will say he does do a good job getting off his blocks and getting off to the next level when you talk about getting up to the linebackers in that second level when it comes to run blocking. Now, getting a little bit into the tape, as you can see in this game versus Georgia, O'Cyrus, number 54, does a great job right here on the interior offensive lineman. Does a good job getting his hands up in time. Same thing here. See the guy coming in motion, and O'Cyrus does a good job getting the guy off his block pretty quickly. But this next play I absolutely love for O'Cyrus Torrence versus Jalen Carter. Like I said, you're not going to be able to completely stop Jalen Carter, but what he does is he allows Anthony Richardson at least enough time in the pocket, about 2 seconds, to at least read and scan the field before he eventually evades and gets out of there. Same thing here, gets up, 2 offensive linemen, does a great job run blocking here. Now, like I said, do I think he's a perfect prospect? Absolutely not. None of these guys are at the end of the day. A lot of these guys coming into the draft are very dependent on the scheme, the talent, and the coaching system around them in order to be successful. They can be athletic freaks. They can be not the most athletic guys. It really depends on the situation to what they get drafted to. But Jaguar fans, that is my top 5 prospects for the Jaguars to take at pick number 24. I'm going to be doing a lot more draft content in the next month, you guys, so make sure that you guys stay tuned for that. If you guys want me to talk about specific prospects moving forward, make sure you guys let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and also let me know your thoughts about my prospects that I have listed in my top 5 for the Jaguars to pick at number 24. I want to hear your guys' thoughts in the comments down below. But Jaguar fans, if you guys enjoyed today's video, man, make sure you guys drop me a thumbs up. It takes 1 second and it helps me in the channel out tremendously. And if you guys are new here, consider hitting that subscribe bell to stay tuned for more Jaguars content that I do here on YouTube. And make sure that y'all go follow me on my socials, especially on Twitter. I'm very active and I'm on there every single day. The link tree will be in the description down below. I also have an Instagram and a TikTok. The link tree, like I said, will be in the description down below. But thanks again for sticking around throughout the whole video. Brett James, AKA BJ. I'm out, y'all. Go Jags, baby. Peace.